and welcome to the Orthodox View, where we discuss latest religious news from an Orthodox Christian perspective. I'm your host, Philip Champion. Which liturgical calendar is more Orthodox, Julian or the Revised Julian, the Old or the New? Traditionally, people within the Orthodox Church have shared different opinions on this topic, but pretty much everyone agrees that the calendar issue should be looked at by the Church itself. It is one of those internal matters that have to be dealt with by the Orthodox clergy and the faithful. So it is always highly concerning when secular powers try to interfere in the internal life of the Church for political purposes. Following the lead of the Greek Catholics and the so-called Orthodox Church of Ukraine, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky introduced a bill 2 days ago to cancel the national celebration of the old calendar Christmas on the 7th of January. According to Orthodox Christian, the Feast of the Nativity of our Lord has always been celebrated in Ukraine according to the old calendar, together with a majority of the Orthodox world. And that day is an official state holiday. In 2017, the Parliament also made December 25th a national holiday, given the significant number of Roman Catholics in Ukraine. However, in the past several years, certain groups in Ukraine have been fighting to move away from their own traditions, characterizing them as Russian traditions. Thus, in February of this year, the Union Greek Catholic Church had decided to switch to the new calendar, and the so-called Orthodox Church of Ukraine had made the same decision in May. The only Ukrainian church which is still following the old calendar is the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church, headed by His Beatitude Metropolitan Onufry of Kiev and all Ukraine. And 2 days ago, President Zelensky submitted a bill to cancel the celebration of the old calendar Christmas, which means that millions of Ukrainian Orthodox Christians will be obliged to work on this great feast. The note to the bill states that its purpose is to abandon the Russian legacy of imposing the Nativity of Christ on January 7th and to establish the date of the celebration of Christmas on the 25th of December. Let me remind you that the Julian, or the Old Calendar, is also used by the Jerusalem Patriarchate, the Serbian Orthodox Church, the Georgian Orthodox Church, the Polish Orthodox Church, the Macedonian Orthodox Church, and of course on Mount Athos. And none of those local churches follow any quote-unquote Russian traditions. Therefore, the recent bill that has been submitted by President Zelensky is yet another attempt to weaken the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church that should be able to decide for itself which calendar to follow. More than 500,000 baptized Catholics left the Catholic Church in Germany last year, according to the new data from the German Bishops' Conference. It is the highest number ever recorded, with 523,000 people leaving in 2022. And if deaths are included, that figure rises to more than 708,000 people. The number of people leaving the Church last year was 44% higher than in 2021. And in 2020, just over 270,000 people left the Catholic Church in Germany. The president of the German Bishops' Conference, Bishop Georg Batzing, called the number of Catholics leaving the Church alarming. Here's what he said: "Yes, the high numbers of departures hurt, and I know how much volunteers and full-time workers in parishes, institutions, associations, daycare centers, schools, and Caritas organizations are committed to others, and how important the good news of the loving God is to them. Do not be discouraged. Please continue your commitment and let the people you meet every day experience the sources of your commitment, your joy and your hope. I believe that we have a good message that our society urgently needs, and that is sustainable." He also spoke about the controversial Synodal Way, the nationwide multi-stage process initiated by the German Bishops' Conference in 2019. Aimed to deal with modern challenges within the Church, the Synodal Way has sometimes been perceived as an attempt to radically reform the Catholic doctrine. Some Catholics inside and outside of Germany have attempted to put the brakes on the process. There have been numerous interventions by bishops outside of Germany, including several from high-ranking Vatican officials, criticizing the Synodal Way. And there have been many calls for Pope Francis to put a stop to the entire process. Moreover, Catholic public figures in the US have already declared that the Church in Germany is in schism due to the positions they have taken on certain issues, mentioning in particular the recent vote in favor of a blessing for same-sex couples, approved by an overwhelming majority of German bishops. Therefore, one can only wonder why people are really leaving the Catholic Church in Germany. Is it because they're losing faith? Or maybe because the Church itself has gone too far in its reforms? I suppose only time will tell. On the 29th of June, hierarchs from all over the Orthodox world have come together to celebrate the Holy Apostles Peter and Paul in Veria, Greece. According to the official website of the metropolis of Veria, the feast began with great vespers in the old metropolitan church of the Holy Apostles Peter and Paul, which brought together hierarchs from the churches of Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, Jerusalem, Georgia, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece. The feast continued the next morning with a divine liturgy. Before the start of the service, the synodal and patriarchal act of canonization of Saint Gerasimos the hymnographer was read out. Saint Gerasimos was canonized by the Holy Synod of Constantinople on January 10th, and on April 26, Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople officially signed the relevant proclamation. Following the service, Metropolitan Panteleimon of Veria spoke about the spiritual examples of St. Paul and St. Gerasimos. Here's what he said. St. Gerasimos followed the example of the foremost Apostle Paul from his youth. He considered everything as rubbish in order to gain Christ, and he responded to the call of Christ by leaving everything behind, his family and his plans for the future. With Christ in his soul, St. Gerasimos was able to endure all the trials and temptations of monastic life, fighting not only against flesh and blood, against spiritual wickedness in high places, but also against the rulers of the darkness of this world. As a result of his struggle, he was given, according to the Apostle Paul, a word to speak boldly in opening his mouth, the God-given gift of hymnography. To him the wonders of God, to him the Lady Theotokos, the guardian of St. James's monastery, the venerable forerunner, the protector of his cell and personal guardian, the holy and God-bearing fathers, Dionysius the orator, and Mitrophanius the spiritual, the founders of the Skete of Little St. Anne's, as well as all the saints, ancient and modern, of our Church, including the founder of the Church of Veria, the great Apostle Paul, and many saints of our local Church. Father Seraphim Rose of blessed memory was one of the most famous American Orthodox priests and writers of the 20th century. His works have undoubtedly influenced millions of people around the globe. And now his audio-recorded sermons and homilies are available as podcasts. According to Ortho Christian, the Orthodox Christian Teaching Podcast Ministry includes 2 podcast channels to supply the audio-recorded homilies of Father Seraphim Rose. They are freely available to Apple device users on the Apple Podcasts app and can also be found on any device in the Spotify app, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, and other podcast platforms. Because of this, each of us has now the opportunity to listen to Father Seraphim Rose at any time and in a convenient format. We shall put a link to the podcast in the description below. Meanwhile, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on the Orthodox View.